Man, being out here really testing my patience. Ran out of mattress and switched my location. 500 miles ain't really that far. For you, oh baby, I'd fix my car. Hills and mountains and trees and stars. It's beautiful, but it ain't a queer bar. 5 million queers across this nation.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Way Out Here, a podcast for remote and small town queers. I'm your host, Laurel Hell, and I live in New Hampshire, originally from the Bay Area in California, and started this podcast as a way to find and create community among queer people who are living in small towns or remote and don't have as much access to community or city infrastructure. So this week, my hot drinks or tea of the week. So this is my Umber mug. This is my mug that keeps my coffee hot all day. I literally have 7 of the bases scattered around my house, 7 of them, one in every room and one on the porch, the screened porch outside, so that I can look at the river and enjoy my coffee hot all day. Literally, I have done so much unpaid sponsorship for this brand, and I have given this mug to colleagues, to bosses, to friends, because it is the best thing that has ever happened to me and it changed my life. And I think they should be my real sponsor because I will advertise this forever as long as I can and with complete honesty. I'm obsessed with it. It's still too hot to drink. What other tea of the week? I got a little bit sick this week and I don't know where or how. I did go to a concert last week. Let me show the poster actually, because it would look so cute in here. I just don't have any wall space left, so I might have to switch something out. Look how cute. Look how cute it is. That is something that small town queers do. They drive to big cities for concerts. I think maybe I could have picked something up there. Maybe my immune system isn't as strong because I'm not around people. Oh, there she is. Hi, Lily. This is my cat. Isn't she perfect? She's literally perfect. I love you, baby. She's perfect. Oh, she's so floofy. In other news, my cat has been a master mouser, which is great. Mostly not always great to be on the receiving end, but I have had to save a few mouse lives. I think that's all my tea of the week. There's nothing going on, really. Work has been great. My shop has been a well-oiled machine. I'm not really doing new designs right now because I'm busy with this and work, embracing who she is. Wooly, Wooly, stop. She's literally shaking the camera. I saw the X's and O's podcast from today with Shannon Beveridge, and her girlfriend's cat is staying over, Bear. He literally chomped the microphone. It was so funny. He chomped right into it with his little fangs. Oh my God, so funny. This is my first week on ADHD medication, and so far, no effect that I've noticed. If you have been liking the questions at the end of the episodes, I have a few of these for sale in my Etsy shop called The Crown Arts. Crown is in crown, a laurel crown, like my name. And they were hella expensive to print, so you're getting them at a great deal. I probably will not ever print these again unless I get like a Kickstarter behind it or something, because it just isn't worth the investment. Go grab yourself one if you want. You know, I didn't feel like normal question decks really covered the issues that we face and the things that interest us. My shop is The Crown Arts, and I also have awesome stickers and things from Lesbian Cinema. I had on an awesome guest, Erin, and we had so much to talk about that we talked for an hour. I feel like Erin is bringing us back to our OG roots of gay community. Enjoy this episode with Erin, and please check out all his different projects because he's doing so much for the community in New England. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Way Out Here podcast. Today we have such a special treat. We have somebody in person for the first time. I'm so excited. This is Erin, and had some issues with my other mic, so we're just going to be using one mic today and kind of switching back and forth. Erin lives in New Hampshire, which is so exciting, so he was able to come out here and visit, and it's just super fun. I hope to have more in-person podcasts as well. So I'm going to let Erin introduce himself a little bit before we get started.
Hi, my name is Aaron Almanza. I am from Claremont, New Hampshire. I recently moved out here. Well, recently, as in the last 2.5 years, from San Francisco, born and raised in California. I work for the LGBT National Help Center, running the crisis prevention hotlines. So was able to do remote and got myself out here and been here ever since.
That's so awesome. First of all, I think it's really cool that we both have lived in San Francisco. I work in software, so I was living in San Francisco and was able to work remote and kind of just decided that I would like to live in a place that was a little quieter and kind of just build my next chapter of my life. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your chapter in San Francisco?
Yeah, definitely. So I moved to San Francisco in 97, maybe 96, 97 for college, was and lived there basically ever since. Um, Worked retail for years, then eventually became part of the National Help Center. But during the pandemic, we went completely remote, except for myself. All of our volunteers went remote. We were able to get them to go work from home. I was the only one working in our office, and our office was in a 15-story building downtown San Francisco. During that 2-year period, there was me, the security guard, and the janitor in a 15-story building, so I was going crazy. Downtown San Francisco was dead. Any noise you could hear was just amplified. Any noise in a abandoned building, you could hear the rats getting closer.
No.
So when things got a little bit safer for people to come back, no one came back. So it was like, well, why are we keeping this office? We're spending money for me to come into an office that I don't want to be in anymore. So it was still height of the pandemic. I had lived out here maybe 20 years ago as a park ranger. So I knew New Hampshire and Vermont. So I knew a few people out here. So like, if I'm going to move, I want to move somewhere where I know people. And I know that I love this area. I always found myself coming out to New Hampshire and Vermont on vacation. So I was like, well, I'd rather go have a plan and go somewhere rather than flee San Francisco. I was living in an apartment with my roommate. It was under his name, and he worked in a museum, and all museums were closed. So I knew at some point he was going to leave. And if he left, rent was going to be impossible. So again, I wanted to go before it was okay, I have 3 days to figure out what my whole life is. So found a house that was for sale, that the owner was selling it for cheap because he didn't know how long the pandemic was going to last. He lived in Florida, and he said, I just want to sell it. So like, all right, let's see if this works. And it did.
That is so awesome. There seems to be a connection, by the way, between New Hampshire and Florida, where people like do the snowbird kind of thing. I have a neighbor here that is only here during spring and summer as well, and then goes to Florida for winter. So there's something to that. And let's just say they're both tax free. So probably people who have two homes want both of them to be in a tax free state. But I totally agree. San Francisco, I had moved out of San Francisco when the pandemic happened, just to like my hometown in the Bay Area. I'm from Los Gatos. I don't know if you know it, but yeah. So I got an apartment there, and right after that, the pandemic hit, and I was working remote. And I lost my job, got a new job. But throughout those years after the pandemic first hit, I really felt like San Francisco just died. It still has not recovered. It has not bounced back. And I'm trying to convince one of my other friends from San Francisco to move to New York because I'm there a lot. And I'm just like, yeah, get out of San Francisco. Like, look, no offense. We love it. We love it. But something happened that hasn't been recovered since. And like some of the best music venues closed, like Bottom of the Hill. That was crazy when Bottom of the Hill closed. And when you're in a city, if you're going to be living in a city and dealing with your car getting broken into and parking tickets, you want to be feeling like it's an actual city.
I was riding my bike to work because Muni shut down, so the trains weren't running. So the only way to get to work was by bike, which ended up being really great because that was my mental health thing. Like, I'm on the streets, I can see the city closing from my bike, but at least I am doing something. I'm physically moving back and forth. Yeah, I went back to San Francisco last March when we officially closed the office, and it's a ghost town still. Like, it'll bounce back eventually, but it won't be my San Francisco. My San Francisco is gone. I was the last of my group of friends who left the city. Most of them left either before the pandemic or the very first couple of months of the pandemic, are now desperately trying to get back to the city, but that's not going to happen. Working downtown, nothing was open. That was just, and if the tech companies were closed, the markets were closed, the restaurants were closed, they can't bounce back like a large tech company can come back in. They're gone. They're not coming back. Yeah. And that's been the biggest issue.
My friend from high school opened a restaurant in San Francisco, and like we were all so proud of her. And it happened to be like I had lost touch with her, but it happened to be kitty corner from my office. So I was able to go there and get lunch all the time, and it was so cool. But she had to close during the pandemic, and she has never reopened it. I think she's doing catering or something. But like you said, most people couldn't just bounce back, and most businesses couldn't bounce back. And while we, of course, respect like the response, like to try to protect people, it also led to a lot of irreparable damage when it came to businesses and stuff like that. So
I have a restaurant story too. One of my friends opened a restaurant February of 2020. So they had less than a month and they never reopened. They tried the self-serve and all of the delivery things, and also the put a little bit of food and you can sell a drink with it, all the things you could try to do to keep a business running, but they lasted until maybe that first reopening of June or July, but they never bounced back, and gone. Now, it was sad that there was the attempt to cover and do all the things we could in San Francisco, but there just wasn't the government help for companies and businesses that were trying to survive.
So do you want to talk a little bit about your childhood and what it was like growing up? If you had any inkling of your kind of identity or sexuality or any of that, or what was your experience?
Right. So that seems like ancient history now, because I came out in 93, 94. So it was before My So-Called Life, because that was a pivotal show for a queer kid at that time, because there was a queer kid on it who was technically your same age, even though he wasn't. But the character was the same age. So I came out early 90s. I think I realized it probably in 1990 with a couple, like 2 or 3 years of figuring out, am I gay? Am I bi? My parents were luckily very supportive. They had queer friends, so I knew that they would be okay, but I wasn't really sure, because at that time, there was nothing that told a kid parents are going to be supportive. There was no template for that. When I decided to come out, it was accidental. My best friend was heavily into drugs at the time, and I was dealing with his drug addictions, making sure he survived the day. And there was one day that I came home late, and my parents were really upset. They searched my backpack. They pulled out a spoon that I had for breakfast for yogurt. What is this for? Is this for drugs? Like, no, that's for yogurt. You put it in there. But it was them saying that, and like, oh, I know that you're dealing with something. What is it? Like, I think I'm gay. I didn't mean to say it, but it came out at that point, and there was a silence, and then the response was, "Oh, is that it?" Yeah. So it was the great that they were supportive, but also like that was kind of a letdown. But it was I realized it just watching TV, realizing there was the Men's Warehouse commercials, where there was these commercials of a series of men being really dirty and musty, like a sports guy, and then they showed him change into a suit. Like, show the first part. I don't know what this means, but there's clearly something here. Those were the beginning of something that's not.
Okay, that's hilarious. Maybe that's why I didn't know I was gay for so long, because we didn't have TV at my house.
There you go.
We only had movies, and they would not be bringing, a gay movie into the house. But that's hilarious. You're like, I want to see the musky man. Like, so you grew up in LA, and what was your connection to New Hampshire?
After college, I was part of the SCA, Student Conservation Association. So they sent for either current students or just graduated students to internships throughout the country. At the end of the program, you got a stipends to pay off part of your loan. And it was great. They're out of They were out of Charlestown, New Hampshire, and one of the ones that they were looking for was St. Gaudens National Historic Site in Cornish. So I got that as a interp, which was giving tours and doing some archivalist work, which was great. And I had never been across the country, so I was like, well, free money. They're paying me to get across the drive out here. It's free rent. Yeah, I'll take that. So I was out here for the year, for the summer, because it's only open seasonally. So I was here for the season, loved it, came back to San Francisco, worked retail again, not really sure what I was doing. And I think 2 years later, they offered me a job as a ranger, which was significantly better paid, because I think the first one was $3 an hour, maybe, to being an actually person who could live off the money. So I came out here as a ranger the second time, and I was a little bit older, and I had a little bit more idea of maybe I'll stay out here. Because the first one was I knew I was an intern, I knew this was over, and I was going back. The second time it was, well, maybe. And I also met a couple more queer people out here. I was like, okay, there are queer people out here. I'm not the only one. Turns out like half the staff was. that helped.
I feel like every time I meet anyone who works in a national park or anything similar to that, I'm like, you're queer.
Either they're queer or they're super queer friendly and allies. That's definitely part of the national park vibe. Save the country, save the world, save the environment, just be cool people.
Can I ask, wasn't there a kind of a controversy a couple years ago where the national parks like didn't want to celebrate queer people or something because of they didn't want to be controversial, but then like everybody was like taking pictures, all the park rangers were taking pictures with their flags and everything. Like, how did that make you feel?
Oh, that was great, because there are so many queer people in the park service, and it's a national position, so it's a federal job. So they're always having to deal with, well, the federal budget and things like that. So they have to deal with politics more than a lot of other jobs. Mm-hmm. So they have to sometimes tiptoe around things. But at a certain point, they just said, screw it. We aren't those people. We're not conservatives. We are conserving the environment. That's it.
I definitely feel like conserving the environment is kind of the opposite of what conservatives are doing. So that sort of tracks. Like, yeah. Okay, keep going with your story.
So was here for National Park.
A lot of people are queer.
A lot of people queer. Luckily met people up in White River Junction, Vermont. There is the Main Street Museum, which is a queer-run museum of curiosities. You need to go. Definitely. Next week is Pride, so you should go to their Pride. I will go. There is a week worth of Pride events going on. Okay. But it is a weird little museum. White River Junction is a small town right on the border of New Hampshire and Vermont. It is where the Cartoon University is. There's a University of Art and Comics. So it is already a very, very queer place. It is a safe space for queer people. I luckily met the owner there that second time, and it felt like coming home, because it was, here's this weird place. You want to just hang out? Yes, I just want to hang out, and I want to be weird. I want to be myself. And I remember when he knew I was returning to San Francisco, he said, well, here's a key. If you ever need to find a place to sleep and you're here, just open the door and sleep on that's home. Yeah. So Main Street Museum was one of those cemented in my mind, I want to come back here. So I moved back to San Francisco with the idea of maybe being back and forth between the park ranger and some type of job in San Francisco. On the day I was deciding if I was coming back it was during the recession, and I could not find a job in San Francisco. The 08, yeah. I gave myself until March 1st to decide if I was going to take the park ranger job a second time or stay in San Francisco. And on that day, I got a call from what would become my future boss at the National Help Center offering me a job. Okay, I'll stick around. And I've been there ever since. I went from being the resource person to being the assistant. And when the founder retired, I took over. And I've been with it ever since. And again, we used to be partially remote. So half our volunteers were remote, half were in office. Mm-hmm. Pandemic happened, and it was, my life has to change. I love San Francisco. This will always be home. But personally, I'm feeling stagnant here. And I feel like I could do more with being a weirdo San Franciscan somewhere else. I think 20 some years of being a San Franciscan has given me enough of a history of I can bring this somewhere else. And being a queer person who's out, I can bring this somewhere else. The house opened up and I knew I wanted to be somewhere in the Upper Valley, either Vermont or New Hampshire. Part of it was which town has a train station, because I can take it to New York or up to Burlington, and Claremont opened up. Okay. And I was like, well, let's give it a shot. And it happened.
I love all of this so much. Claremont's like kind of on the border, right?
Yeah.
But I totally relate to that feeling of stagnation in the Bay Area. And there's like, I mean, that's so cool, the work that you've done. But there is a big culture of tech bros. And like, it's fine, but it kind of has really like evolved what the Bay Area looks like and feels like. But I totally felt that same thing. Like, the pandemic changed everything. And I realized that I kept trying to make it go back to normal and that I would never be the same again and that I needed a big ass change. So I was like, yeah, looking for places to go. And I had also been in New Hampshire and Vermont a few times and just really loved it. It's the land of lakes and rivers. It's so beautiful in the fall. You know, it's just, I love it. It's magical. I just like the peace. Like, I'm noise sensitive and
with the noise thing, I got used to the quietness of the pandemic, of as scary as it was at first. But then it was, as things started to get a little bit better and people were out more, I was like, I kind of miss the quiet. I think I was changed, that everything else was horrible, but it was this, I enjoyed the camaraderie of the people I met during the pandemic, of there's only a few of us. And I kind of felt that out here, that there isn't, I think the two states together is 1 million people. LA has a population of 10 million. So there's a big difference. And I think Claremont has a population of 15,000. And I think my neighborhood in San Francisco of 5 blocks equals the same as my town. And it feels like that, in that stagnation of my job meant everything I was doing was paying for my apartment. Yeah. So all of my extracurricular anything was, how do I live in this city? I'm not doing anything else. I'm not doing anything. I'm part of other organizations. I'm trying to do things, but I'm burning out because my job is everything to live in this city. Mm-hmm. So being able to buy a house and have a mortgage that's cheaper than my rent, mm-hmm. I can expand that money to do other things with it and use that to help build community. And that's been one of the things that's like, I'm definitely not rich, but I'm better off than I was in San Francisco because I can afford more than feeling bad if I'm doing takeout once a week.
They don't deliver anyway here. So I know I literally can't even get a pizza delivered here. So there's a part of me that's like, that's probably good for me. I love to cook, so I'm cooking a lot more, but there's a reason they call it the golden handcuffs in the Bay Area. There is a lot that's great there. The woods, the redwoods, the ocean, it's beautiful. It's a kind of exciting, thriving place, but then everything you have is going to your rent. And that's not an investment in yourself. Well, I want to respect a lot of people like living in an apartment because they don't have to do all the repairs and stuff. And that is really expensive, let me tell you. But like, as you know, it's still an investment because it's shelter, right? But it sucks to pay somebody else. Yeah, it's not an investment. Right, exactly. It doesn't feel like an investment for your future. So I totally agree. It's like been so nice to do what I want with my own place. Like, look, I have a rainbow guest room and it's so cute. And like, I can paint the walls. Exactly. Like just all the things that when I buy something for my house, it's like, oh, that's actually mine. And it's actually my investment. So, okay, cool. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing out here? And definitely want to hear about the Bike Queer Little Library.
Coming out here, I wanted to be connected to the queer community. And I definitely think, again, one of the things that came out of the pandemic was the realization that things can go away super quickly. Like overnight, things can end. I watched things die all over the place. But what I did notice was, in small towns in New Hampshire and Vermont, there was strategies to start creating queer space. There may have been some push before the pandemic, but the pandemic kind of like crossed the board, showed everyone we need each other. So when I got out here, I contacted the queer groups that I knew and said, I know you're doing something, how can I help? So I got connected to Claremont Pride, Windsor Pride, accidentally started Bellows Falls Pride. That was my favorite. But it was towns that were doing things and queer people trying to find each other and trying to find stuff. Yeah, this is exactly why I'm like, I want to do this too. This is it's like again, it was I have this experience from San Francisco of I'm not afraid to be out. And I know there are people who can't be out because of whatever their circumstance is. And that's valid. But that doesn't mean that they can't see another queer person. Yeah. And that is something that matters, of showing a flag. They never have to raise the flag themselves, but if they see it, they remember it. Anytime I was able to do that, like I have that experience. I have the knowledge. I work for a queer organization, so I know that my work got my back. I work remotely, so I don't have to worry about my job being connected to politics in town, and things can change that way. The things I've been doing is the first thing I did when I moved into the house was paint my staircase rainbow. That was something I told myself, if I ever owned a home, I needed a rainbow staircase, because there used to be a rainbow staircase in the Castro years and years ago. Yeah. And the owner of the building was remodeling it. And the Historical Society asked if they could take it. And he said, sure, you could. The day before they came to pick it up, he demolished it. And it's this historical staircase because there's a picture of Harvey Milk on it. It was the feeling of that wasn't right. That was my thing. Like, my first thing I have to do, that I have a house, I'm painting the goddamn stairs rainbow. The next day after I got it done, I was like, was that a good idea? I don't know my neighbors. I know that there's a giant Trump sign. It's my outdoor staircase going up to the house. And I was like, was this a good idea? I still don't know anyone in this neighborhood. I know like one person in a 50-mile radius. I don't know if this was a good idea. My office is in the house. Okay, let's see how this goes. And a couple days later, I hear some noises on my porch. I'm like, uh-oh. Okay, what is this? And I look at my window, and it's a group of teenagers taking pictures of themselves, voguing and all this stuff on the stairway. It was like, yes, this is 100% why I did this. I'm actually going to cry. I did the right thing because they have a rainbow staircase. I love this.
I just think that's so sweet and so amazing. I was going to paint my back steps to the porch, like to the pool, rainbow as well. I haven't done it yet just because I'm so tired all the time. But like, I totally agree with this. Like, when I have my pride flag up, so the school bus passes my house, and every time it passes and I see it, I just think there's a queer kid on there. And I'm the only other person in this town with a pride flag up, except one other house, but theirs is pretty faded, so they should replace it. No, I'm just kidding. And did you see my neighbors, the scripture? Did you see that? That's what I'm dealing with. Yes. But I do absolutely think that representation of being like, hey, we're here in small towns too, like, helps all those small town kids know that, like, you don't just have to go to the city to find acceptance anymore. Like, it's going to be okay because we're here.
That was one of the big things that San Francisco, it's still considered the gay Mecca. So one of the things I used to do is I worked with the San Francisco Initiative, which was a homeless outreach program. We would go from my work downtown San Francisco and walk to the Castro, offering food and drinks for those who need it. And surprise, surprise, like more than 0.5% of the people living in the streets are queer homeless kids, because if it's not safe at home and they run away, there's still the idea that San Francisco is a safe place. Idealistically, yes. But once you get to San Francisco, rent is $6,000 for an apartment. So how is a kid who's run away from school, from home, has no diploma, doesn't know tech stuff, how are they going to get a home in San Francisco? The kids fleeing from rural areas, trying to find a safe space, they're finding a safer city where they won't freeze to death in the winter, but they're on the street. While it's great that there are cities that are safe places, you shouldn't have to.
I just feel like most cities that are like all queer, like take P-Town also, like these are expensive places. They've become the really pricey places to live. So
Yeah, that's part of the paradox of success. That if we are in a place that is safe, it's safe for everyone. So that's great, and that means that more people can go there. But that also means everyone wants to go there, especially San Francisco. Not only is it a nice, safe place, it's a super pretty place, and there is the mountains, there's the ocean. That's great. A kid who's growing up in New Hampshire who wants to be a farmer because they're the third or fourth or fifth generation farmer, they should be able to still be a farmer and still be queer and still be out about that. And that was one of the things that I saw coming out here. It's like, if I can help in any way of making sure a queer kid feel like I don't need to leave, that I can raise my family here, that's important.
I love that so much. I was just talking on episode 2 with my friend Becca, who lives in Idaho, where we both went to school, tiny, tiny Mormon town, how true queer liberation is that we can be anywhere. Like, because some of us really like living out here. It's very peaceful, it's beautiful, and like there's small town charm. Like, that's a real thing, you know? And so I do agree with that. And I think it's awesome that you're, helping facilitate that. How did you find queer community? It sounds like you called up some Pride events and you maybe helped organize some Pride events. Just tell me a little bit about your experience and then how you would maybe recommend people in small towns find community.
So for me, I luckily cheated. Going back to work, one of the things that we have is LGBT Near Me, which is a resource database of queer things in the country. You do a zip code search and you can find what's in your area. That's how I start with the organization. I helped start that. So I already had I can cheat. I can just see what's already in here because I put it in there. I knew that there was a couple of groups and this is a good place to start. I know that Windsor had a Pride group and I knew that White River Junction had a Pride group. I knew that Dartmouth College had a GSA. Never heard back from them, because I'm not a student, so I'm not surprised. But the other two Prides, how can you come and show up for something? And that's just started how I got connecting to those. And with Windsor, they're a very small town. I think they're without a population of maybe 2,000, 3,000. It's a tiny little town, but has a huge heart that they wanted to do something. And they wanted to do 30 days of Pride that first year. So every day of June, there was some type of event. So it was like, okay, let's do this thing. That's a lot, but let's do this. And unfortunately, one of the planners had to back out because of family issues. So I kind of got thrown into you helped plan it. You want to go? So I don't know anyone here. I don't know where anything is, but I guess I'm going to learn. Knowing that I'm a natural introvert, that this is like knowing it. And I think that's a big thing of knowing that you are. How do you combat it? Yeah. And this was really helpful for me I guess I'm running Pride this year. Okay. That means I have to put that hat on. So it was looking for things that were already out there. Was a really important thing, like White River Junction, Windsor. Last year, I accidentally started Bellas Falls Pride. Bellas Falls is just, again, on the border of the Connecticut River, New Hampshire, Vermont, about half an hour south of Claremont. Small, adorable little town. Their opera house, which is their theater, has classic movie nights on Wednesdays where it's super cheap. It's $6 for a movie, $6 for candy, huge candy and popcorn. I went to go see a movie. It was a Hemingway movie, and it wasn't like 4 or 5 people in the theater. And sitting behind me were these 2 horrible women.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a gay couple.
No, it was these 2 horrible women who were, again, don't remember the movie, but there's Nazis in the movie, and they were talking very loudly. They're being so mean to those nice young men. Like, those are the Nazis. We're not supposed to be pro-Nazi. And they kept talking. They were horrible people. Okay. These 2 women were horrible, horrible people. Yeah. But before the movies, there was these ads for, do you want to show a movie here? I think it's like $300 to show a movie on Classic Movie. And I was like, I have $300. And I want these women's heads to explode if they could, because they said that they come to every movie. So they'll come like, what gay movie can I show here that'll so let's see what we can do that. So I contacted the theater and we got a movie. It was the movie Pride, which is it is my favorite queer movie because it's based on a real story. It's about interconnection between queer organizations and unions and uplifting everyone and people understanding each other. Like, this is just a good movie in general. So this will kill them. Like if they're pro anything, this will destroy them. So got the movie set up, and the man who was running it, Charlie, he was connected to somebody else who was working another connected organization. And well, do you know that Aaron is showing a gay movie? I know that you're connected to Keen Pride somehow. Do you want to have a movie from Keen come out? So we ended up having a conversation of, we had 2 movies for June, which then's like, well, why don't we just have a film festival? So we ended up finding sponsors for 2 other nights, and we had 4 movies. So all June, every Wednesday night was a classic movie night, and all of them were queer. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. We had But I'm a Cheerleader. We had Saved, and we had, I can't remember the last one, but that started like, well, that was easy. That was way easier than we thought, and we ended up starting Bella's Fall Pride, which was, now we've had dances, we've had tea parties, we've had bike rides. Part of it was the town was like, okay, let's see if this works. Bella's Fall's biggest piece of history is it was the home of the Andrews Inn, which was the first gay bar in Vermont. And it was also right on the train. So people from New York and Boston would come up for the weekend to this hotel and bar that was originally a straight-owned bar. The son of the owners was a gay man, an out gay man. And this was in the late 70s, early 80s. It's like, we got people who want to come and pay for this. Let's make it a gay bar. And it was a gay bar for up until the early 80s. So we have this history of it's a queer space. Yeah. Let's really focus on that. We have this piece of really important history. We're just continuing it.
I just love that so much. And like, I'm learning so much from you, and I didn't know any of this was here. So I'm just like so stoked, like, to get more involved. And I had a booth at Boston Pride because I also sell stickers and prints and stuff, like design prints and stuff. I'll give you some stickers to take with you. Yeah. But like, it was so fun, and I met so many cool people. But I also was thinking about doing Keen Pride because that's where my stylist is. And she had mentioned it was like in September or something. So I was like, okay, that's enough time to recover from my first Pride to like maybe do it. But like, I love the idea of just like bopping around doing these little Pride festivals or whatever. But I seriously want to get more involved with the community, because in New Hampshire, I'm not at all right now involved with the community. I did find a queer owned electrician and painter, but that's, there's like also a shortage of trade out here. And so, like, speaking of queers, come to New Hampshire, be painters and stuff. We need you. Like, you'll make good money here.
On that, yes. I know in Claremont, I discovered we have a queer couple who does house painting. Like, yes, we need more of that. So also, I want all the contacts that you have, so we can add to the database.
Okay. Definitely need this, because I try to find only queer people to work with, and have only been able to find those 2. And so I know there's other queer people out there. So if we can start a database, that would be amazing.
So also, they weren't active this year, but I believe Warner had a Pride the last 2 years. They got rained out last year, but they were still up and doing stuff. I think this year they just could not plan something for this year, but they definitely have something. I've always worked with the underdog organizations. So that was one of the things that I've always been interested in, like people who are doing things on the fly, on the cheap, as easily as they can, because it's an easy entry point. And I think when you ask about how do people connect, it's finding, like, it's great that there is larger organizations out there that have a lot of money, especially nonprofits that have a lot of money. Having worked in nonprofit now for 20 years, I know how it works, that not all that money goes to the programs usually. Smaller organizations, like almost 99% of it goes to the work. Yeah. Larger ones, not so much. Mm-hmm. So in areas like here, I know that a lot of the prides out here are a mix of either it's a very small nonprofit, or they're under a nonprofit, or it's just a group of people doing something. And it's, well, we can't get a grant because we're not an organization, so we're doing this out of pocket. So it's going to be a small thing. And I think those are the things that matter. They're doing something in their town. They have those connections because they are a queer person in the town. They've known that town all their life. They know the salons that are going to be supportive. They know which businesses to ask, which churches that are affirming, can we use your church for a venue? And those are the things that I love about smaller organizations and smaller, just scrappy things, is they can get things done, but it's small scale, and those small scales are what matters, because that's a really easy entry point for people to go, wait, I can do that too.
Yeah, definitely with the bigger prides, there's a lot more bureaucracy. It was actually surprisingly easy for me to get a booth in at Boston Pride, but I think it's because they're now Boston Pride for the people. They stopped being corporate for this exact reason. And my booth did cost money, but of course it's like supportive of the event as well. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just glad to see that it's getting back like more grassroots into the hands of the people.
I've never liked San Francisco Pride. Like, it's great that it happened. It happens because it's really big and it's really showy, but it's corporate. And I know when we wanted a table for the hotline, tabling there was starting at $1,000 for a table for a nonprofit that's not selling anything. It should be free. And I know that we would have to get insurance that would put them under our insurance. Like, it's not intuitive for supporting the community. Smaller organizations out here. I love these prides that are smaller because that's where it's needed. You don't have to go to Boston if you don't want to, especially if you're a queer kid. If you don't have a car or you don't have the gas money to go to Boston, you can go to Laconia. You can go to Lebanon Pride. These are smaller prides, but they're more local, and it matters more. Like, it is great that these huge ones happen, and they're a destination, but they're not where you live. Because what happens the day after? All of these things go away. You're now left back at your hometown where there isn't any queer people. But if you went to Warner, it might not be your town, but it's there.
I just had no idea. Like, I mostly was like, oh, there's going to be no pride events around here. Just because, like, all the Trump signs you see everywhere and whatever. But a bunch of the other towns you mentioned, like you can drive around New Hampshire or Vermont and just like stop in like once a week or something and find a lot of pride events.
That was actually one of the more pleasurable problems of helping with planning Pride this year, because I was on a couple of different planning boards. Yeah. I was like, well, there's only 4 weekends in June, and everyone is trying to do something on those weekends. Plus, you've got Boston Pride and you've got New York Pride, so people are going to have to make the decisions of, am I going to this one or that one or this one or this one? Right. Like, on the last Saturday, Claremont had a street party and a silent disco. Springfield, Vermont, which is close by, had Rainbow Palooza, which was a vegan / pride event. Bella's Fold had a disco dance that night. So it was like, how many things can you go to? This is a good problem. Like, you have to decide, which one am I going to go to? Oh, Keene also had prom that night. In a 50-mile radius, there was multiple things on that night, and that was happening all through June. That was great. So I do love it that White River Junction waits until July and Keene waits until September. That's a problem you want to have, that you have to decide, which one of my local ones am I going to go to?
Yeah, that's awesome. And honestly, for a while, I didn't realize how many places do their Pride March at a different time of year. In Silicon Valley, San Francisco is June, but Silicon Valley is end of August. It's so smart because you don't want to be pulling people in different directions. Plus, like, it just extends the celebration, and we all love that.
June is Pride Month, but we are queer all year round, so we can march anytime we want. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be the historical June Pride Month. We can be prideful anytime, which is why I am glad that we've spread it out more. Because like Silicon Valley, it was definitely because they knew that if they're going to do it, they're going to be competing with San Francisco, and they're not going to win. Yeah. So let's say no one's doing anything this weekend, we'll do it this weekend. And Oakland did the same thing. They put theirs in September for the exact same reason. Berkeley did the same thing. They put theirs in October, so that there's something every month, something's happening in the area. And I know Laconia's is happening in August, I think, or no, September. So there's a lot more spreading out of these things, just for that fact of, we know we can't get everyone to our thing, but if we spread it out, we have a bigger chance of having them.
Plus, there's this letdown at the end of June where you're like, oh, the month's over, sad. But it's like so great to be able to find other events to go to. And I'm actually going to Montreal for Pride at the beginning of August. So I'm like so excited for that. And I made some friends online, like a lesbian couple in Montreal that I'm going to meet up there. So I'm like trying to find my community the way I find it. But yeah, that's super exciting. Do you want to tell us about your bike?
So one of the things I do is the Little Query book bike, which again, came out of the pandemic. Libraries were closed. So a lot of libraries got creative, and they had carts where you check out a book and they came to your house and dropped off the book. And this was such an amazing idea because libraries are so important for our communities, and this was a way for people to still connect with them. So I always loved that idea. There are street librarians now. I was just in San Francisco. There was the Bicicleta, which is a person who had a bike, and behind it they had a cart full of books. And I'm like, that's great. I love that idea. And especially that they did it without an electric bike and San Francisco hills. Like that was hardcore. Yeah. For a couple hours, they put up a sign saying free books, and people could come and get a free book. And I love that idea. And that was just a kernel of the idea of, well, where do queer people get books out here? Luckily, there is a growth of queer bookstores. Again, with the hotline, we used to keep data on how many bookstores there were. And before 2019, there was less than a dozen in the country. I think there was 8 queer bookstores. Today, as of last week, I believe there are 70 queer-owned bookstores. They're not 100% queer only, but they are queer-owned bookstores. There's at least 70.
They'll probably have a queer section.
Yeah, and a very good queer section. Yeah. So that was this great idea. But that doesn't mean that they're here. They're still in large towns, or they might not advertise that much about being queer-owned. So you might, if you're a queer kid who doesn't know that that's a queer bookstore, you might not go. Yeah. So where do you get your books?
You.
Me. So I one of the things I fell in love with my bike during the pandemic, it was my mental health tool. It kept me sane. It kept me alive. It was just also a great community builder. There's bike parties where people would come, ride their bikes. You talk to other, like, where'd you get your bike? That's a really cool bike. So it was just communal. So all of these things kind of connected to the book bike. So like, I want to give people books. I have way too many books in my house. I want to have an excuse to get rid of them, but in a purposeful way. So I built a A-frame bookshelf on the back of a little trailer. It's adorable. Spray painted it rainbow colored and have a large rainbow umbrella on it. And I just find a place and I set up some books. It's not 100% queer. So it's queer, POC, and banned books mostly. Occasionally there's some other books in there as well, but it's harder to find books. It gave me something to do. So on a weekend, I can set up the bike, go on a little ride, set the book bike up, put out the sign, free books. I will announce it on Instagram. I'm connected to the little library, so I can tell people where it is. I'd rather people discover it on a whim. They find it either online or they just happen to walk by. So many people go, so they're free? Yeah, they're free. Please take a book. No, are you sure? Yes, they're free books. Just take a book.
You're like, remember the little free library.
Yeah, just think of that, but on a bike. Like, if you don't like it, just put it in another library, give it to somebody else. It's free. But it's been great. I can be introverted as much as I want because I can set up a chair and read a book. And like, if I want to, free books, take a book and just go back to reading, or I can have a conversation with a person. Yeah. That's been the greatest part, that having those conversations with people. I was set up at the Lebanon farmers market last year, and this older woman came by because, she looked at the books. Are these about lesbians? Like, well, those 3 are, because I didn't know they made books about lesbians. Like, please take all 3 of them then. So she came out to me, basically. There was that. In Bellows Falls, we ended up giving a bunch of books out at the end of a bike ride to a group of homeless queer youth who were living in the forest. They can't get a book from the library because they don't have an address, so they can't get a library card. One of them said, I haven't read a book in quite a while. Like, take as many books as you want. One of them was about to get on the train to go to New York to see if he could find a job. So here's a book for your train ride. This weekend was one of the best ones. I was in Laconia, and there was 2 older women. One of them started laughing at one of the books. Oh, this book, it's so funny. It's got a picture of a man in a dress in it. And the other woman said, I think that's about being trans. And the first woman looked at the book and she goes, oh, well, then I better read it because I don't want to be an idiot. I didn't have to say anything. You all did this yourself. It can be done. You just proved that it doesn't take that much. It just goes, that's interesting. Let me learn more. Oh, there happens to be a free book right here. it's been like, I love giving it to kids because they love the books, just the random books that a person finds us. I remember reading this when I was a kid. I want to give it to my kid, or I never knew that this type of book existed, or my kid just came out as non-binary. Oh, there's a book about non-binary. My kid will love this. I don't know anything. Maybe I'll read it first. So it's been like, I love my job. I love working with the Pride organizations, but I definitely think that the book bike has been, for me, a mental health thing of like proving that people are good and that it connects all the things I love. It connects bikes, it connects queer things, it connects POC and banned books, it connects people who dislike books, because so far no one goes, I hate books. Like it's one of those things that even if you don't like reading a lot, there's simple books, there's picture books, I gave out a coloring book to an adult. Like there's things. It's a thing that almost no one has a I hate books. Right. Well, there are people who ban them, but for the most part, books, the idea of books, people like. And that has been such a great way of meeting people and letting them know about, I can also advertise the hotline. I can also advertise, hey, I'm in this town. Did you know that Pride is happening in this town? Here's their flyer. So it's been community connections. It's been, for me, just a healthy way of going, there are people here.
I'm just so impressed with everything you do. That's amazing and so generous. And just like, I do feel like, they call it pleasure activism, where like find what brings you joy. Like I've always loved video editing, deep conversing, and so many other things, graphic design, all the things you need to make a podcast. Basically, like I have the skill set for. So I was like, this is delightful. Like I'm going to find a way to do what I love already. And then same with like my queer sticker shop and stuff. It's like, I know how to design and other people want things on their water bottles. So like, I can help facilitate, like, and in a way where I'm putting my personality into it. And it's like, it's funny using my sense of humor, and then to be at Pride and see people laugh over the things I laughed over when I made them. It's the best feeling in the world.
I 100% agree with that. It's if you like it, you want to continue doing it. And there's 100% chance that somebody else is going to like that thing too. There's cross-pollinating things. Like if you like hiking, there are queer hiking groups, and you can then alter that too. I like help cleaning up hiking paths. So that's another thing that you can do. You'll continue doing it because you like it. Yeah. And that's another way to find people. Like if you like it, somebody else likes it.
You are inspiring me to get more involved with the in-person queer community, because most of what I do right now is remote. Like I either ship off stickers or I'm like doing this podcast, which is mostly remote. But I love this. And I want a whole list of people to interview from you, by the way, because this is super fun doing it in person as well. I really believe we all have a story to tell. And, most queer podcasts are like influencers in LA. And no offense, y'all are great. Let's Chat, the Latina one in Jersey. I love you so much. You're so real. We are not them. We are not in LA with the privilege of all of these people to date around us and just like already being famous. And that's why the podcast works or whatever. It's like, these are small town people or remote people who also have a story. And those are the stories I want to tell.
I think that's great because, not having been from a small town, growing up in LA and growing up in San Francisco, I have that history. But I know a person who grew up here doesn't have that connection to LA. They don't have that connection to a large city. So they would love to hear from somebody else, even if they've a new arrival, but they would definitely love to hear somebody else who's third generation. How do you deal with this? Like, I get that. I want to hear more of that. So I want to definitely invite you to queer bars. So Queer Bar is another thing that I started. Queer Bar there is the guerrilla gay bars that happen, or queer bars. So Boston, I think, has one still. Chicago has one, but we pick a bar, underground type thing. Okay. So what it is a space is picked, and then everyone finds out some way, and we take it over for the night. So in San Francisco, years ago, it was by phone. So there was a phone chain of on Friday night, or I think it was Thursday night, there was a phone chain of telling everyone we're going to X bar, we're taking it over tonight. So what we do is Upper Valley Queer Bar, which is usually the third Friday. We pick a bar and we tell people on Instagram on that Friday at noon where the location is. And we try to pick a bar that's in the Upper Valley, which is the Connecticut River from Bellows Falls up to Hanover. So that's the area that we kind of pick. And we take it over for the evening. And it's been great. The first night we had like 40 people show up. And like, where have all of you been? Because like, it was a year after moving here. I had not met that many queer people yet. Like, so you exist. Where have you been? And each night has been like actively doing things. So that first night we had 40 people. The night after, the next month we had maybe 10 people. So each night definitely had a different group of people. Since we moved to different bars, there was one night we were in Windsor and I think we had maybe 8 people and they were all from Windsor because it was heavy rains. So no one else left their house except for those who could walk there. It was like, that's great. These people, like, there's never been a gay bar night in Windsor. We made the first one. So I think it would be a great way to find people to talk to, because I know that Burlington and Montpelier has a queer bar event of themselves, and that's further north than where we go, but we are close enough that you definitely come. Queer people, let's hang out and be adults.
I love this. I will come. I'm so excited. And to me, it's just par for the course driving, but yeah, just sounds super fun to take over a space. There's a place in Keene that has started doing, maybe not started, but maybe they've always been doing it. They're doing line dancing. And I don't know if you've heard of Stud Country, but they're an LA based queer line dancing group. And I'm just like dying to get the queer line dancing to pick up out here. Like, it would be so fun.
Claremont just had it. I was working Springfield, so I wasn't there, but there was queer line dancing on the street party. So there is a person who does it in Claremont for, I think, the seniors. He was like, I don't just do it for the seniors. Let's do it for everyone else. So they did it for Queer Night. So yeah, it can happen.
Brilliant. Literally, I have probably 10 pairs of cowboy boots. So I need this. I need this for the outfits. Is there anything else you want to talk about with maybe dating in a small town or anything else to do with your identity?
I can definitely say dating has been a challenge. Even though I am definitely connected to the queer community here, there aren't that many gay men or bi men who are not in a relationship. And so I'm 45, so there is a age gap that I've noticed, that there are younger queers and there are older queers. The 35 to 50, if they're here, they are already established with a partner, or they are in a relationship and looking for a third person. And no hate to that. That's just not what I'm looking for. I don't want to be a third person in a relationship, especially one that already exists. That's just, for me, not what I'm looking for. That's been a difficult thing.
Definitely relate to this. Dating is a challenge. Most of the people I date are in Boston. And I'm kind of just like trying to convince some cute city girl that like I have a great life and we can split our time between the city and the country, you know? Yeah, I'm just like, I have a river in the backyard. Come on, like come kayak or whatever. Like, it is a very big challenge. And I totally agree with like the age thing. Like, you know, you and I both moved out here as single people at the age where a lot of people are already married. And it does feel like most people move out remote once they're established and married in a relationship. They're like, it's like everybody wants this life, it feels like. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people want to like kind of escape the city and live this kind of life. But they, for obvious reasons, they are like worried about dating and stuff. And I totally get it because it's a nightmare. Yeah.
There is I think I've seen a lot of memes of millennials with let's move to the country and start a commune. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. We all thought about that before you did too.
Yeah.
We just never did anything about it. Living in San Francisco, I didn't date much there either. San Francisco is not a dating town. It is a very weird place to exist in a dating sphere, especially if you're looking for a relationship. So that didn't work out very much. So it was I can't wait around for that. If I'm waiting for the person to be the thing that helps me move, I'm going to be waiting and stuck in San Francisco forever. So I was like, I just got to do it for myself. I'm going to try to buy this house. If it doesn't work, at least I tried. Oh, wait, it did. I guess I'm doing it. But yeah, it was I've always wanted to have some type of space of my own, but I always did assume that I would have that person with me. But it was like, I can't wait around until that.
I think that's very empowering. We do live in a culture, and look, I want partnership too. Like, I want a wifey. I hate that word. I want a wife. I want a partner. But, growing up and dating men for a long time in religion, like, I always assumed the man would have the house or the man would have the money or whatever. And it's just really empowering to realize that, like, in this society where we literally give people tax breaks if they're married, it's hard to give yourself permission to do things by yourself. But like, it's beautiful to do things by yourself, to go to concerts by yourself, to go have a glass of wine by yourself, to go to dinner by yourself. There's nothing wrong with that because you should be making your life rich, I do think it's empowering to give people this example that it's like, hey, you can actually do it on your own and it's going to be okay. Yes, dating does kind of suck, but I don't regret it.
It's scary. It can be scary to move away to somewhere else without a partner because you have somebody to lean on if you have a partner. So it's scary. Yeah. I think acknowledging that is also part of the empowering. Like, you get to go, what the hell am I doing? Like, coming from California to New England, I moved out here in January specifically so I could deal with winters for the first time. Okay. So, it was like, if I could survive this first couple of months, I will be okay. But it was part of my mentality. Like, if I don't have that other person, like, I can't guarantee that somebody else will have my back. And that is a scary thing to think, but it's also okay to have that thought. I think there is the idea that you have to have everything figured out if you're going to do something. Ideally, you have some plan, but plans change.
Couples shouldn't always live together. Or like, not everyone, like, imagine you do make a huge move and you're stuck with somebody, and what if like things don't go well? Then you have no community. You've like abandoned, it's just a lot easier when you're by yourself to find someone and build a life together, like from where you're both at there,
Years ago, I was dating somebody who was a tech bro. So it was I work in a nonprofit and you work in a company that's very much like IVM. So you definitely have a lot better pay than I do. Yeah. And you also have health insurance and I don't. And we did think about moving out here back then. Yeah. But one of the things that he said was, well, if we move out there, it'll really be my house and you'll be living in it because I'm the one putting more money down. Like, okay, well, that's good to know that that's how you think. Yeah. That was one of the many things that ended that relationship. Yeah. But it was I am doing this for myself. Like, certain partners, you're definitely going to go into things equal footing, hopefully, if you're in a healthy relationship. But if it's just yourself doing it, you don't have to worry about what if this person isn't the right person for me and I move across country and we break up, then what am I doing? You don't have to worry about that. You move here and you find that person, hopefully, here, if that person exists.
There's so many ways to live life. We can't have it all. Like, build the kind of relationship that you together want to see. And that's what's beautiful to me. I just think this opens up opportunities that would be not something I had been open to in the past. But it's a reality. I do love to talk about dating on this podcast because it is probably our biggest challenge. Yeah. I do want to build a life together, but I also would love to like have an apartment in the city and like we can split time in both places. Like, there's quite a bit of health in being able to be alone sometimes in your space. So that's something I'm open to also. And it's just about finding people who are like compatible and on the same page about it.
I also think maybe our solution is find people who live even more rural than us, like North Country. Like, this is civilization in comparison to that. But maybe that's the solution. I like the idea of having multiple spaces because you don't necessarily have to live with them. I would like to, but also, hey, we're kind of annoying each other. We have options. Spend the weekend away this weekend.
Yeah. I bought this house knowing that if it needed to be, it could be like a vacation home kind of thing. It's like very cabin-y vibe, like on the river and kayaks and the fire pit and all that stuff. If like I met the right person and they just had to have a city job, I get it. Okay, so the last thing we do is I have this little deck that I made of cards. It's basically like a question deck for deep conversing and stuff. But this one is, do you have any child wounds? How do they impact your friendships, work, and relationships?
Well, let's go with the physical wound first. Okay. So in 3rd grade, I got stabbed in the hand with a pencil while at Catholic school. Went right through. There's still a little tiny dot. So I remember just looking at my hand and seeing through my hand and then going up to the nun and telling her it happened and she blamed me for him doing that. But it definitely made sure that I was not going to continue to be a Catholic. There was several times I thought about going to Catholic school because I'm Chicano Hispanic, so there is a history with the heritage of Catholicism. Being gay and the hand stabbing kind of like signified that's not going to work out. Both together. Sorry, gotta check that one off.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. All right. Is there anything else you want to say about projects you're working on or anything else?
Super, super gaying up the house.
Yeah.
So right now it has a rainbow staircase. There is, I believe, 40 flags on the house. There is, I'm very proud of this stupid rooster that's on the yard. It's a 5-foot tall rainbow painted rooster. I have the largest cock in town. On the first day of Claremont Pride, I got attacked. Riding my bike home. Yeah. Riding my bike home from the Pride event, I got a bottle thrown at the back of my head and I got a concussion. So the police say that there's no way of proving that it was a hate crime, but I had the book bike that day, not at that moment in time, but I had been up and down very visibly that day. I have no question that it was hate related. Yeah. If not queer related, a hatred to the person with all the rainbow flags in their house related. The big plan for the house is maybe it's time for the house to get painted. That's the next thing of let's rainbow the house up. We used to have this guy who walked by the house and he said, I'm not walking by your house because of all these flags. Like, it doesn't hurt me that you won't walk past my house. And somebody else told me to tone it down, and that's why I have more flags. So anytime something happens, something else goes up on the house. So I'm not sure, maybe it's painting the house, maybe it's an even bigger flag, but there is definitely a queering up the house to annoy the next person. It gets back at them. It's my vengeance, but it also makes it visible for somebody else. It was very well known in town that I got attacked. The first day of Pride, this happened. I want to make sure that people know that as a community, we won't be afraid, that somebody is going to go, well, fuck that. I'm going to put something else out. So big project is gaying up the town.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that happened. That's shitty. And that's a horrible feeling. You want to feel safe where you are. But when you fight fire with fire, it's like, it proves that they're having the opposite effect. This is the Pavlovian response I am having to you hurting me is more gay.
I've been giving out flags. That was one of the first things I did was I ordered 300 flags and I was just giving it out for free. And that has been the best. Even more than the book bike, that's been the best. Seeing people like, I can just have a flag. Like, yes, just take a flag. Now you have no excuse not to wave it. I've tricked you.
So I made New Hampshire Pride flags.
That is so great.
Hold it up for the people.
Oh man, I love that.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was so fun, and I'm so excited to hang out. I'm excited for Q-Bar and all the other queer small town events that are going to be happening. And everybody, isn't this the coolest person you've ever seen or come across? Please follow. Let me give it back to you to say where your socials are. My
main website is shadarko.com, which needs to be updated. But for Instagram, it's a Little Query Book Bike and Q-Bar UV. So that's Queer Bar Upper Valley. And bellasfallspride.com for other events that are down there. Those are the main ones. And from those, you can find all the other stuff.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all for being here. We're queer.
And we're way out here.
Man, being out here really testing my patience. Ran out of mattress and switched my location. 500 miles ain't really that far. For you, oh baby, I'd fix my car. Hills and mountains and trees and stars. It's beautiful, but it ain't a queer bar. 5 million queers across this nation. I hear every one of them saying we're